All right, welcome everybody. This is Dr. Jody Stanislaw. I am a type 1 diabetes expert. I help type 1s all over the world really get the full education that we need to know how to properly manage our blood sugar levels. I think it's a skill set that many people with type 1 just frankly never fully get well educated on. But also, as a holistic physician, my passion is also really making sure we have good support beyond just blood sugars, right? Diet, which is what we'll be talking about today, as well as sleep, exercise, mindset, right? We have a condition that really demands a lot of support. And the more support, the more supported we feel, the more educated we feel, the more we're connected to community, the easier it is to manage. It's that simple, right? But we have to be willing to invest a time like we do on our weekly type 1 diabetes crew meetings here. And then we have special meetings like today, where we will be talking about plant-based diet. I want to introduce to you Betsy Bragg, who is our speaker today. Betsy, welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I look forward to meeting each of you.
Yes, of course. So let's just jump right in. I'm really grateful to Betsy to be volunteering her time today for this hour. And we are going to start. Betsy, why don't you first tell us about your why you're so passionate about plant-based medicine, and just, you know, how did you get turned on to it?
Would it be all right just to start for a minute, and I'd like to get acquainted with everybody who's here for a minute, and just
I would love for everybody to know who you are first, and then absolutely we can go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves as well.
Okay.
But it makes most sense for you as our speaker today to introduce yourself first, please.
I tried many different diets, and none of them worked at all. And I was hooked into 12-step program, and my son was really tired of that. and he said, I really want you to go to the Hippocrates Health Institute because it helped my former husband when he had cancer. And he felt that it would, if I would really, he was very much into health orientation. And so he even paid for me to go. So he couldn't.
And what year was that, Betsy?
That was 2006.
2006. Okay, so 15 years ago.
Yes. And so I was there for 3 weeks, 21 days, eating raw plant-based food. And I lost all my cravings for junk food and for processed foods. And it was amazing to me, just amazing to me. And so I really wanted to share that with other people from this wonderful experience. And so that's how it all started.
I love it. I love that it was motivated by the love of your son.
I'm very fortunate. He's a wonderful son.
That's great. So this 3 weeks of eating plant-based diet really changed the course of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now this is my passion, what I'm doing. I love it, and I want everybody else to do it too, because I feel so great.
That is great. And, you know, that is a very powerful testament to when you are a teacher from your own personal journey, right? That's exactly what I'm doing, right? Living with type 1 for 40 years, teaching other people. And so your story is very powerful, Betsy. Thank you.
I've been a teacher for 45 years. I'm now 87. I feel great.
You're 87. Are you really?
Yes.
That is you are so you discovered this when you were 72.
Right.
I love it. What a great story that, you know, here you are at 72, changing your life, and now you're a teacher of plant-based medicine. I love it.
No, I call it plant-based lifestyle.
Plant-based lifestyle. Okay, sorry, I use the word medicine a lot. Okay, so let's go around the room. Betsy wants to really know who we all are, and if you guys want to just share. Betsy, what do you want to know about, like how old they are, where they live?
Where they are, where they live, and if they have any questions, so I'll be sure to answer them.
Well, you know what we'll do, since we haven't started yet, what I'll have everybody do is when you have a question, or if you already have one, just put it in the chat. And so then I'll be able to, you know, we can see all the questions in the chat.
Well, just tell me something about yourself.
Okay. Maybe about your diet or something like that. What do you like to eat? So, okay, why don't we start with Sue?
My name is Sue Wilson. I live in Wisconsin, outside of Milwaukee, and I eat a low carb diet. I'm not real big into the plant the plant-based. You know, I don't go heavily into it, but I'm always open to learn.
I love it. Yep. And that's what we're here for. We're not here to make all of you eat plant-based from now on. Unless maybe you want to, but I love that you're open to it, Sue, open to learn more. Thank you. All right, Kathy.
Unmute.
I'm Kathy Reed. I live in San Francisco. I'm, I guess you call me a pescatarian. I'm mostly vegetarian, but I do eat some fish once in a while. I'm not vegan. I'm low carb. I eat pretty well. I'm pretty healthy, but I'm always open, like Sue, to new ideas and better ways of eating. Thank you for coming.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. Wonderful. All right, Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Cook. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. I also eat low carb, not plant-based. I try to strive for a variety of whole foods, colors, things like that.
Great. Great. Thanks, Amy. Doug.
Hi, I'm Doug Sir from San Diego. I'm also basically a low carb, and I am familiar. My mom was a SDA vegan, so I am familiar with that. But she's tried for many decades. But I basically am a low carb person.
Great. Great. Thanks for being here, Doug. Paula.
Hi, I'm Paula Davis, and I'm from Los Angeles, California. And I too am a low carb diet. I try, like Amy, to add a lot of colorful vegetables. I don't eat a lot of fruit. And I'm open to, I love plant-based, but I always thought it was very high carb. So I have been reluctant to do that.
Okay, thanks, Paula. Whose dog's barking?
That's my dog. Did you have me on?
No, it looks like you're on. It looks like you're. We'll go for you next, Callie. We'll just get real quick. So Callie actually introduced me to Betsy. Callie has been to the Institute. But so Callie, if you'd like to share.
Hi, I'm Callie. I'm a type 1. I've been type 1 for 22 years, and I've been to the Hippocrates Health Institute 4 times, and I've been to the Ann Wigmore Natural Health Institute 4 times. And I try to practice the plant-based diet, and I certainly need some encouragement all the time. So, and I'm from Boston, the Boston area, Beverly, Mass.
Great. Thank you for introducing us to Betsy, Callie. I appreciate it. All right. And Lorna.
Hi, I'm Lorna. I'm in the UK. Tried like unsuccessfully to eat more plant-based a few times. Interested to know what the best ways of getting protein when you cut out meat are.
That's a great question. We'll definitely be covering that. Okay, there you go, Betsy. That's the team. That's the crew.
Great, great.
All right, so let's start with our first question of why plant-based and what are the benefits?
Well, I think I mentioned to you too. I don't know if I mentioned that I lost the 30 pounds during those 3 weeks. And then during the following year, I lost 70 pounds, and I was very crippled with arthritis before I went. I could hardly get down the front 5 steps of my apartment house. And so it just really changed me completely. Callie's already told about herself, because she really impressed me that with her 3 weeks there, her AIC dropped 2 points, and she minimized her insulin by almost a half, and her mind's much clearer and more focused. Mine certainly is. When I eat processed foods, my head gets very foggy. I feel heavy. I'm not happy. And so it's amazing. I don't know whether any of you have seen a movie, The Game Changers, but in it, there are so many number of athletes like Kendrick Farris who holds the American record-holding weightlifter, and Scott Jurek, a record-holding ultramarathon, and Morgan Mitchell, second-time Australian 400-meter champion. They all eat vegan, and they all tell you why, and they feel terrific. And then many medical people on that documentary. It's a great documentary called Game Changers. Another really amazing book that I highly recommend. It's called Undo It by Dean Ornish. And he started in the 70s doing many medical studies and getting doctors on board. And one of the major studies was called the European Prospective Investigation into Cancer and Nutrition. It's called EPIC, EPIC. It's a study of 25,000 men and women, and shows how the influence of a plant-based diet and how it had shown it 78% lowered the risk of developing any chronic disease by staying on a plant-based diet. It's a very well documented, very readable. You can even get it on Audible if you feel like listening to it while you go out for a walk.
And we have fabulous Doug, who always is helping with resources here. Doug has put the link to the movie and also the book. Can you hold up the book just a little bit more? There we go. Oh,
my background is
yeah, a little higher, a little higher. Yeah. How simple lifestyle changes, a little higher. Changes. Okay.
How simple lifestyle changes can reverse most chronic diseases.
Great.
He pioneered the revolutionary field of lifestyle medicine until using lifestyle changes to prevent and reverse diseases. And my primary care physician believes in it strongly. He's with Mass General here in Boston, and he advocates it for all of his patients. And in the morning, during the warm weather, I see him as he swims across Walden Pond, which is wonderful. So I see him as I swim also. And so on to the next question.
Great. Well, it's so inspiring. You wrote some notes for me here that I'm going to read as well. Let's see. It's not a diet, but a lifestyle. I like that. So we'll go more into that, at how you kind of slowly adopt a new lifestyle. California schools today are serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner with many plant-based dishes, helping kids think better, which is great. In one Texas prison, the prisoners are growing vegetables in gardens for their meals.
I was going to tell that with question 2.
What's that?
That's my question 2.
What's your question?
To tell all about all the changes of people, one by one, if I may tell.
Oh yeah, of course. Let me just finish reading this last part. In one Texas prison, the prisoners are growing vegetables in gardens for their meals. Less addiction, less anger, less violence. Beautiful. So I think, I don't know if you know this, Betsy, but I gave a TED talk called Sugar is Not a Treat. And yeah, I'm completely on your page with, food really changes not just the taste of what we're eating and our enjoyment, but our mentality. I mean, it just ripples into every area of your life, emotionally, physically, mentally. It's beautiful.
And I was a sugar addict, and I did terrible things. I had bags of candy in my drawer that I gave to students when they were good.
Oh yeah.
Terrible to do.
Well, that you didn't make up that idea yourself, Betsy. You know that there's millions of teachers that do that still to this day.
Terrible. But it really a plant-based lifestyle, to get started on it, it's really just do one thing at a time. Just if you have children and you want them eat good food, you just introduce it. You don't force it to them. You just have it available and say, this is delicious, and have it on the counter for them. And same with adults. It just try one thing. I mean, I had one of man I met who was in real estate, and he had his lunch at Panera, which is a brand. I don't know if it's national, it's a brand chain here. And every day he had pizza and a brownie for lunch. And we asked people to change and think of just one habit that they want to change. And so he agreed that he would change his lunch. And so he had salad for lunch, and a big salad instead of the brownie and pizza. And in 21 days, he lost 30 pounds. So it's really amazing. Another man, Clint, when I met him 6 years ago, he'd had 5 heart attacks and 5 stents put in, and he didn't know what to do. He said, "Who should I go to?" And I said, "Well, Esselstyn is President Clinton's doctor. Why don't we call him?" He'd been speaker for me years ago, and because I used to have big potlucks with 125 people bringing vegan food and have guest speakers every month. And I didn't realize I had a cell phone number. He spent 45 minutes explaining why stay on a vegan diet and no fat, no avocados, no fat at all. And so Clint did that. He stayed on a very good plant-based diet. I hope to show it to you later on. He would have, for instance, quinoa porridge this season for breakfast. It's very easy. You just mix quinoa flakes with hot water. It takes 2 minutes for it to heat up, and you've got a nice warm porridge, and add almond milk and add blueberries, and you'd have a nice tossed salad for lunch with beans like garbanzo beans and things in it. And then he'd make a good salad for supper too. In 5 years, he had no heart attacks. He's had none since. So it makes a great deal of difference. I worked a lot. My heart goes out to low-cost, underserved communities, low-cost housing. And one of my families, Mexican family, they were quite overweight, and but concerned because the son had type 2 diabetes. And so they were really willing to do anything. And so they went on a plant-based diet, and he reversed it. He had, in 3 months, he had no sign of diabetes. And the rest of the family was so much healthier. They lost weight too and started being very healthy. Another friend that worked with her mother who had type 4 breast cancer. And she persuaded her mother to have, we usually start our day with wheatgrass juice. And which is very, has all the wonderful amino acids in it, except for iron. Instead of iron, it has chlorophyll, and it does miraculous to start off the morning with 2 ounces of wheatgrass juice, and start vegetable juice, have celery and sprouts in a juice. You can have today too. I have it. Can you see it for a second?
You got that strange filter. Yeah.
It's very refreshing.
Clearly there's endless benefits. I actually just made a list just so I can summarize, the point of this part of of our talk is really to, have you think about what are areas in your life that you'd like to potentially improve, right? If it's fatigue, or if it's joint pain, or if it's fear of heart disease or weight loss, or even hormonal imbalance, right? All of these things. So 10 benefits of a plant-based diet. Reduced inflammation, acute and chronic, of course. And then, of course, there's the environment, right? Reduced carbon footprint, which is very big. Improves kidney function, lowers type 2 diabetes risk. You can get type 2 on top of type 1, right? You can start having more and more insulin resistance. Key one for us, reduce risk of heart disease, which is, the number one reason why patients with diabetes die is heart disease. Lower levels of bad cholesterol, brings LDL down. Reduce risk of cognitive impairment and dementia. which is also seemingly becoming a potential complication of high blood sugar because we know it damages nerves and the brain is made of nerve tissue. So plant-based reduces risk of cognitive impairment and dementia, improved gut health, which is very obvious, reduced risk of certain cancers, improved athletic performance, reduced arthritis pain. So the benefits are unparalleled. We know that. So Betsy, and then of course, Betsy's own story herself, such an incredible transformation at the age of 72. So now that we're very clear that there's incredible benefits, how do you go about, the reality is most people aren't going to make a dramatic change unless there's some major, like that family, right? They were motivated because they just lost their child. Unless there's some major change, the reality is most people aren't going to suddenly switch to celery juice and salads, right? So how do you recommend to people that are just interested, like, okay, how do I, you said that great quote, it's inch by inch, it's a cinch, right? Inch by inch. So what are some examples of small inches, if you will, that people could make?
Well, like Richard, just have a salad, add a salad to your day. It doesn't take much. I found in my low-cost housing, every family had a blender. So that's about, you need to have a good sharp knife and a blender.
Mhm.
And to start on your plant-based life. And you can make neat smoothies for yourself. They're delicious pick-me-up just to have, and to put in spinach and an avocado. And it's a nice soup to have. Add a little lemon juice. And if you have a juicer is wonderful because a blender will have all the fiber in it, but if you have juice, it goes into your body so quickly and it absorbs so much quicker and has much more influence. And just try one, just add one thing onto your lifestyle, to try some new vegetables. The websites, the YouTubes are marvelous at showing you so many different things if you just put them in. I mean, we have such a wealth of material out there for everyone.
One of the items that works really well for us for breakfast, and everybody's seen my blog about it many times, is chia seed pudding. So the chia seed pudding is a really popular breakfast or snack or even dessert for us with type 1. Probably easier than the quinoa breakfast, since the chia seeds are much higher in protein and fiber and lower in carbs than the quinoa. But that's definitely something I hope all of you already here are. Has any of you not tried chia pudding? Anybody? I'm sure everybody has. So that's a good start.
We usually think of chia pudding as a dessert, but you can have it as a breakfast too.
You have not thought of chia pudding as a dessert?
I've had it as a dessert, but not had it for breakfast.
Oh, yes. Dessert for breakfast. I'm a big fan.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Lorna asked, we have a lot of questions over here. Okay. Lorna asked, do you mind if we go to some questions right now, Betsy?
Sure.
Okay, great. Do you find you can eat out if, say, you were invited to an event or someone else's house? How do you manage that?
Well, I always bring a present of food along. I'll bring a salad along. I'll bring a dessert along. I'll bring a main dish along. They're always glad to have it. And I just stick to my main dish when I eat. Because people say, what can I prepare for you? And I said, don't worry, I'm fine with anything. And eating in restaurants, even at very gourmet restaurants, I say, just, would you please bring me a big dish of all your vegetables that are steamed? And then they do it because I say, I have an allergy. And they don't ask who my doctor is, but I'm my own doctor.
Yes, yes, exactly. I
But
love your attitude, Betsy. That's been, it's so important for us with type 1 to think that way, to just be empowered, to not, hope and cross your fingers that the right thing will be there for you, but you become prepared in advance. And I love that. I do that as well, always bringing in some sort of like baked vegetables is my standard because I can eat that as a meal that I always like to bring.
so there are 3 key words to say in a restaurant, and that's "my doctor says," and they'll do anything.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. That's a good tip. That's a really good tip. Lorna says, I'm assuming you said
I do
that
wanna-
giving,
I did want to one other thing though. There's a very good website called Happy Cow, and it has all the restaurants that have vegetarian food in it.
oh, great. Why isn't it called Happy Plant?
I don't know. They call it Happy Cow for some reason.
Oh, because you're not eating the cow. That's why the cow's happy.
Yes.
Yeah, happy cow, sad plant. No.
The French call it la vache qui rit, but that's the name of a cheese.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Lorna says it sounds like giving sugar to kids in schools is actually banned in the UK. That's really good news.
That's wonderful to know.
Polly asks, is Betsy type 1? No, Betsy, her son encouraged her to do a 3-week plant-based diet regime 15 years ago when she was 72, and it absolutely changed her life. And now she is a vibrant 87. But no, she does not have type 1. Doug says, can you explain the issues around fat? Doug, can you be more specific?
She was mentioning how avocados and things like certain fats are bad. And I just want to understand a little more detail. Also, I tend to stir fry a lot of my vegetables. I'm Asian, so I eat a lot of Asian vegetables. So I'm just trying to figure out some of the downsides or upsides of that.
Of fats, and which fats?
Yeah.
The most carcinogenic item in the supermarkets are the oils that come in clear glass, so that the sun has beaten down on them for months, and it's very, very bad. You need to pick like grapeseed oil is one thing to use, is a fat. To use add water to your oil so it's not so thickly greasy, and don't stir it too much. Have it so it's crunchy. I mean, I love to go to Asian restaurants and just have a Buddha bowl, which is the vegetable bowls.
And the avocado, you're talking about avocados in general or avocado oil? Is that what?
Avocado, I was speaking of as a vegetable, but actually it's a fruit, because anything with seeds is a fruit. It's very good oil. That's a healthy oil for you. Whereas canola oil is terrible. It's a cheap oil. Canola oil is cheap, so they put it into everything. But look at your what you're buying. There's another app called Bobby Approved, BOBBY approved, and you just you put it on your phone, and you hold your phone up to any ingredients list, and it will tell you what's good and what's bad.
That sounds great. I love that. So what would you say are the best oils for stir frying besides grapeseed?
I think that organic, I always buy organic. It costs a little more, but it'll save your doctor's bills. And it's olive oil that's is very good. I can't think of the name. It slips my mind. I'm sorry. It's the best grade olive oil. It will be fine. And
Are you trying to think of the terms like extra virgin? Things like
yes,
that?
yeah. Well, there's another word too, but I can't think. It'll come to me. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just to answer from my perspective, the fats I always think of as best for for high heat. And Betsy, of course, correct me if I'm wrong, but grass-fed butter, of course that's not vegan, but ghee, coconut oil, and and the olive oil. Those are the three that I think of actually as the best for, but I suppose you said you're adding grape seed in there in addition to the olive, the coconut.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
My son uses ghee all the time because he likes Indian food.
Yeah. Okay.
Avocado oil, you could say also.
Okay, great. Let's see. Doug, does that help you? And I love that idea. It's so simple to add water in, so you don't have to have, too much oil. And the steam also helps cook the vegetables. And, the less time they're exposed to heat, the more nutrient value they retain. That's why steaming and sauteing is so much better than baking.
I'm not sure about stir frying with water and oil together.
What's that?
I'm not sure about stir frying with water and oil together.
Oh, it works just fine. That's how I've done it my whole life.
Okay.
Yeah, because it brings a little steaming to the to the pan, and then it doesn't create any, obviously they don't mix well together, water and oil, classic, don't mix well, but they don't create any problems by putting in the pan together. You have a little bit of the saute effect from the oil, and you have a little steam effect from the water. Okay, Lorna asks, I get that animal and transfers are not good, but why no natural fats? Oh,
Trans
hopefully.
fats,
What's that, Lorna?
animal and trans fats. I was kind of asking the same question as Doug, like, is the fat in like an avocado or an olive oil not actually good for you? Like, I think earlier you were talking about someone was advised to cut out all fats altogether. So I was confused by that.
Avocados are very good for you. Nuts are very good for you, but not in large quantities. But there's fat in nuts, and they're very good for you too.
I think the confusion, Betsy, came when you were speaking of the man who decided to go vegan, but also no low fat. And we don't understand, maybe that was just his personal choice, because you're not demonizing fat by any means, correct?
No, I'm just saying you don't. My doctor says no more than 10% fat if you are suffering from a disease.
I see. Okay. And is that any disease or?
Well, diseases in which you get inflammation, diseases are inflammation.
Right.
And so any chronic disease.
Got it. Well, I'd like to just kind of be the devil's advocate here, because with type 1, if we have healthy blood sugar levels, I would not say that we're in chronic inflammation, right? It's high blood sugar levels that cause chronic inflammation. But if you have type 1, which means you're simply missing your beta cell function, and you're able to replace your lack of insulin with the appropriate amount of insulin injections, and you're able to keep your blood sugar levels balanced, then your diabetes isn't creating inflammation. Now there's,
it's not a chronic disease.
What's that?
Not a chronic disease.
Type 1 is, yes, it is absolutely, yes.
Oh, okay.
But it's very unique. It's very unique in the sense that, we have it, I've had it since I was 7, we've all had it for several years, but it's simply something that was once there is now gone, and we have to replace that. Right. So if we can accurately replace it, which is our challenge on a daily basis, I like to think that we've neutralized the effect of any damage that diabetes causes. Now, everybody has inflammation to some degree in their life, because that's cellular death, and cellular death happens every day. Right. So we're all have some sort of inflammation going on, whether you have a chronic disease or not, right? Inflammation from not sleeping well, not having a good diet, from being too stressed out, from not exercising, from not drinking water, from having toxins in your environment, right? All those things cause cellular death.
Right. Thank you. I'm always learning new things. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. So, yes, Callie is confirming, yes, avocado is a good fat. Lorna says, what's the difference between having juice than eating the vegetables?
As I mentioned before, you absorb it quickly into your body. And it's important to have fiber too, but I encourage both things.
Yeah, I personally, and correct me if, if I should do things differently, I never use a juicer because I always want I respect the whole plant or the whole, whatever I'm putting in there. And I want all of it. And especially if we're putting any fruit in there, we as type 1s don't want it to get in really fast, right? Because it will spike the blood sugar too quickly. So I don't find juicing good for me because if there are carbs in it, it will spike me too quick. With the fiber, it slows down the blood sugar spike. And my assumption is if it's going to get in there, it'll get in there, right? But if there's fiber, it'll just get in there slower. So I don't see the benefit in it getting in there faster, or maybe you're like more complete or something. But I've never understood juicing because I feel like we need to respect the whole plant and we should have the whole plant.
Well, I was thinking of wheatgrass juice, which you don't need grass.
Right. Well, in that case, right, you can't chew. That's very true. I understand that.
And something like celery. I have a glass of celery juice in the morning.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to eat that much celery.
That's a good point. Yeah, I've actually just put celery into my Vitamix before, and the goop that it makes is not as pleasant to drink as if I had actually put the celery, but I do. Like sometimes I'll just drink the goop because I'm like, it's good for me. I got to do it.
I think I recommend both things. I recommend wheatgrass juice. And if you're ailing with something, have it morning and night.
Great. And so Doug, you said fiber ? Do you want to expand on that, or have we answered that for you?
Well, I was just commenting that the advantage of eating whole vegetables is probably the fiber.
Yes.
Yes. Fiber is very, very important. It acts like a toothbrush to clean all the plaque through your system.
Okay, so Callie asked, can you explain that type 1 with type 2, right? Well, so Betsy, you'll learn from this explanation too. Callie is asking how a type 1 can get type 2. So type 1 is a destruction of the beta cells, right? For whatever reason. The classic is autoimmune destruction. Type 2 doesn't have an autoimmune component whatsoever. It's a breakdown in the system. And there's two parts in their body that are broken down. Number one, the beta cells are not functioning well anymore, just like anything that's overused in the body. You know, tennis people play too much tennis and then they get tennis elbow, right? People that eat tons and tons of sugar and carbs, their beta cells are going to get tired. And guess what? They're not going to be able to keep up, right? They're literally pushing the system beyond what it's built to handle. So the beta cells get weak in type 2, but so that doesn't apply to us because we don't have beta cells left. But the second pathology, if you will, in type 2 is the other thing that gets tired out is insulin is like a key that opens a lock on the cell walls. And once insulin binds to the cell wall and it enters into the keyhole and opens the cell, that's what allows glucose into the cell, right? You can't get glucose into the cell without insulin, without the key. Well, guess what? Type 2s also have rusted out keyholes. The cell is like, I don't want to open up for you anymore. I've been opening up and bringing in glucose for so many decades that I am just tired of opening up. So literally that is what pathological insulin resistance is. Temporary insulin resistance happens when we're sitting all day, when we have a high fat meal, and now we have a lot of fat circulating in our bloodstream until it's fully, you know, in its new role in your body. But pathological is the cell with the keyholes for the insulin literally are rusted over. They don't want to respond to insulin anymore. Most type 1s are on about, well, it's, you know, 30, 40, 50 max insulin units a day, maybe down to 20, but most people are around 20 to 40. A type 2 could be on over 100 units a day. They can be on 120 units a day because they have to hypersaturate their body because so many keyholes are rusted over. So many keyholes are not going to respond. They take a little bit of insulin and it doesn't work at all. So if we keep eating, we can rust out our keyholes as well. And then our insulin dose will go from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 because we have to hypersaturate the body to get those cells with the few little keyholes that are left working to open. Okay, so that is how a type 1 can also become type 2. They won't be called type 2, they'll just be called type 1 with insulin resistance. And it'll be a type 1 that is on a whole ton of insulin. Okay. Let's see. Is there a downside to stir frying vegetables? Just any cooking obviously reduces the nutrients a little bit. I don't really think there's any other downside. That's just a question that Doug asked earlier, Betsy. We covered that, didn't we? Or is there any other downside you want to mention?
If you have too much oil.
If you have too much oil. Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. Doug's put some helpful links in here. We've already answered. Okay. Do you want to talk about nuts, Betsy? What are you think are good? Are there good nuts and bad nuts?
I would always recommend raw nuts.
Mhm.
Please do not think that peanuts are nuts. They're not. They're legumes, and they can get moldy because they're under the ground, and that's why people are allergic to peanuts. Because when they make them, they throw the stalks in with everything else, and in the mold, if it's cheap peanut butter. So I'm not including peanuts.
Yeah.
But the oily nuts like cashews they're heated. They're not raw. You have to heat them and steam them in order to crack them open. I use cashews on special occasions, like I make a wonderful cheesecake out of cashews, but I don't make it very often. But almonds are wonderful for you, and it's wonderful to have almond milk. But I don't have it. I don't have a great quantity of it. I just have maybe a teaspoon of salt. It's so easy for nuts too. Excuse me, I'm gonna have my little green juice here. It's so easy to indulge in nuts and eat a whole can of them.
Yeah.
And then it would be too much oil, too much of everything.
Now, but you said there are such a thing as raw cashews, though. I've seen raw cashews.
That's a myth.
That's a myth.
They have to be steamed in order to be opened.
Oh, interesting. They're also one of the highest glycemic index of nuts. They raise blood sugar more than any other nut.
Yeah, because they're very, very fatty.
Well, but they also have carbs to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Callie is suggesting it's better to dehydrate the nuts and then grind in to juice. Okay.
We always recommend, if you know about squirrels, ever watch them? They take the acorns and they wash them and they leave them in water. And same with nuts. You need to soak them for a few hours first and get all the inhibitors off them, because those are the inhibitors that are on nuts to keep the animals from eating them. And then after you soak them, then put them in the dehydrator overnight and get them nice and good. Then you can keep them in the freezer.
There you go. And so you buy them raw, you soak them, and then dehydrate them.
Yeah.
Ideally. Okay. So Kathy, which we're definitely going to get to, asked a great question. Can you give us a typical meal plan?
Yes. I have start off with, I usually have 16 ounces of water in the morning with 2 tablespoons of lemon juice or half a lemon. And that's, you think of lemons, they do alkalize your body. You think of them as acid, but they actually alkalize your body. I live on an alkalinity diet, not because it's the acid that makes people inflamed, their systems inflamed. And so I usually start off with those 16 ounces, and with it, I add, I take my supplements in the first thing in the morning. And then I juice my wheatgrass juice and have wheatgrass. It's got to be head fresh, and you need to be 15 minutes afterwards for you wait, because you don't want to put anything else down you until that's absorbed into your system. And then I make my regular juice, but then I like the quinoa flakes because I just stir them quickly into water. I don't, and it's nice to have quinoa flakes stirred up, and then I add a quarter cup of almond milk and berries, and or I could have avocado toast. I take a toast like Ezekiel bread and put it in the toaster, and then take an avocado and mash it up and add maybe some nutritional yeast for a nice taste to it, and could have that for breakfast. Or I could have the spinach avocado soup for breakfast. So I have a variety of things for breakfast at the beginning of the day. I do have some cooked food. I make a very easy, takes a half an hour. Because on this cold weather, I want something hot. If I've been out walking, which I try to do every day, and so maybe I'll have a salad for lunch, and then for supper I'll have what I call a veggie chili. I throw into a big pot 2 cartons of vegetable broth, and then 15-ounce can of diced tomatoes, and then I put in a can of kidney beans, a can of garbanzo beans, put in broccoli, and not broccoli, Brussels sprouts, parsnips, carrots, celery. I put in a lot of seaweed that I get from Lars Hansen up in Maine. He's the seaweed man, and his seaweed is clean, whereas other seaweeds, they tend to not be very careful about how they are harvested. And he has a nice sample package of five types of seaweed. But the seaweed is very good for you. And then I also add different spices, which according to your taste.
Delicious.
But that's very quick and easy to make. And so I freeze half of it, and then have the other part, so I can have a cup of that with my salad. And there are a lot of dishes. I tend to be a mono eater. I live alone, so I'm not living with somebody. If I was living with somebody, I would make all meals. But that's what I ate today.
One of the best things, what you mentioned is really, obviously it takes a lot of preparation to do these things, but you can really save yourself time if you get into bulk cooking. And we obviously don't have time today to really dive into all the different endless recipes and menus that are available, but it's certainly easy to Google. I mean, there's tons of, and I do have, Betsy, I found your we're going to do this. She put together a little, everybody can see that.
This is an online recipe book. And different people's recipes. This is a delicious chocolate breakfast bowl with an avocado, coconut oil, cacao, vanilla, chocolate, hemp protein powder, and a cup of almond milk or coconut milk.
I mean, that sounds delicious any time of day, in my opinion.
Yes.
And then we have, there's just so many fabulous creative, we got to really get recipes and recipe books in our kitchen to think outside the box, because then you'll end up like me, just make steamed broccoli and a salad every day.
I do recommend getting a spiralizer. You can get one for $6, or you can get a nicer one for $15. And it's really fun to have spiralized noodles and make yourself a marinara sauce with red peppers or tomatoes, and it's delicious.
It is delicious. I used to do 3-day retreats in Idaho for my clients, and that was one of our mainstays is spaghetti, but it was obviously zucchini. And I just want to point out that, we're not looking for perfection here at whatsoever. Like, for example, Betsy just talked about how peanut butter is not great for you, but here's a recipe with peanut butter. So again, I'm sure all of you guys have heard me say many times, 80-20 rule, 80% of the time we're having things that are really, helping our body. And then there's a room for a 20%. And I think that's really important for any of us that grew up with very strict diabetes rules, especially. So realize that, it sounds like, Betsy, you're pretty hardcore, and I honor that, but I also don't want that to scare anybody away.
Well,
So
I'm a sugar addict, so therefore I try to stay away from sugar.
yeah. And then just here's what she was mentioning, her raw veggie chili. So, there's just endless opportunities to really think outside the box. And at this, because it's January, it's the start of the year, it's a great time to just try new recipes. And you can just Google some, tasty vegan recipes, right? Okay, so we're wrapping up here soon. We have a lot more questions. I'm going to just scroll down the chat, Betsy, and look at people's questions. Is that okay with you?
Please do.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're kind of saying better dehydrate the nuts. Okay, Kathy's was, can you give us a typical meal plan? Oh, Doug asked, what are your thoughts on products like Beyond Meat? There's that Beyond Meat burger. And then what's the other one? But like those vegan processed.
I don't like them. I don't like the taste of them personally. You can make a meatloaf very easily with nuts and other things. And I much prefer to make a meatloaf than buy. I'm careful of what's in them. Those raw meat. Look use your approved body one. Another app that I wanted to mention is the Chronometer, which tells you all of the amount of fat and protein and carbs in every vegetable and every other food right away. It tells you the amount of calories in that one item. If you want to put together a recipe, it tells you how much is in that recipe. And it's a very convenient tool.
How do you make sure you get enough of the, commonly missed out nutrients, protein being the first one I think of, but then of course there's things like B12 and things like that, calcium.
Everybody thinks you need a lot of protein. You don't. Dr. Jody, you probably can tell me more specifically, but what I've learned is that 2% of protein of your diet is enough to have, and you can get that from vegetables. And I've heard, but I couldn't come up with the exact scientific study. I need to look for it. That says that if you have too much protein, it turns into fat. Is that right?
Well, if you have too much of anything, it can turn into fat for sure. But too much protein also can create a lot of, acidic state in your body. I don't think too much of any of the macros is good. As you guys know, I'm not a real numbers person where I track and graph everything. So I'm not really the one to answer when it comes to how many macros do you need and how do you weigh and measure it. And, I really am a firm believer of if you're eating a whole food, healthy diet and you have energy and you're sleeping well, I can't imagine you're undernourished, right? Especially if you're eating whole foods every day, you're going to get so many more nutrients and proteiners and tofu and beans and even broccoli and nuts. And there are a lot of proteins in vegetables for sure.
So whole food is so important, as you said.
Exactly. And if you look at it, if you look at evolutionarily, there's, people in Latin America have grown up really a lot on carbs, beans and rice are such a staple. But then you look at the Eskimos and they really thrive with fat, right? Because that's they don't have a lot of beans and rice in the snowy conditions, right? So they have all this fat. Or, out in Africa, they're eating meat and they're, so you can look at any different civilization and find that, there's different ones that thrive on fat. There's ones that thrive on carbs. There's ones that thrive on protein. Now, when I am supporting people's desire to do low carb, I always remind people there's no such thing as essential carbohydrates. There are essential fatty acids and there are essential amino acids, which means that we need to get those amino acids and fatty acids from protein and fat. So that is, I have a couple articles on, how to make sure you get all the nutrients you need when you become vegan. That's something to definitely look into. B12 is the first one I think of, but my favorite way to get B12 is with nutritional yeast, which is like a yellow powder that kind of tastes cheesy and you can put all over your veggies. Betsy, I'm sure you use a lot of nutritional yeast. Do you like it?
Yep, I do. Yes.
Yeah, a great way to get B12. But yeah, Betsy, I think you're completely right. There's a lot of misconceptions. I mean, just like in the 80s and 90s, when the milk industry made everybody believe they need 3 glasses of milk, milk does a body good. Did you have your 3 today? I mean, that was not based on any science. No, that was not based on any science. That was a marketing ploy, right? And all the moms are like, oh, did you feed your kids milk today? Right? I mean, we were all believed that we needed 3 glasses of milk a day to have our strong bones, right? So there's a lot of misconceptions out there. And Doug, personally, Betsy, if you don't mind me saying, you are a beautiful example of embracing plant-based. But as we made the analogy earlier, if you're going to start running a marathon, you have to start with walking a mile, right? So if you're going to ditch your hamburger for Beyond Meat, I'd say that's a good step towards in the right direction. Betsy, would you agree?
Yeah, anything, just try one little thing and it's just great. Like Richard just changed his lunch.
Yeah, I love that.
And just try one thing. Try if you don't eat any vegetables at all, try to say, oh, I'll eat one vegetable a day.
Perfect. Doug, can that recipe be shared with the group? Which one, Doug?
You showed a recipe, a slide of some recipes.
Oh yeah, Betsy, can we share that?
You can share my book.
Oh yeah.
Yep, the daily menus.
Oh great. Okay.
It's an online book. I teach a class and they do at each class they show breakfast, lunch, and supper. They demo it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And so there's a breakfast, lunch, and supper, a little bit about the student that's presenting it, and then a video that shows them presenting it so you can see how to do it.
Yeah, I'll show you. So yeah, this is it's a lot. This is an incredible resource. Look, it goes on and on. It's what, 107 pages, Betsy, it looks like.
Yes.
So, and there are videos of people, presentation with John, and then recipes by Kathleen. There's lots and lots in here. Presentation with Kathleen, recipes by Safi. So it's a really great resource. So thank you. This is incredible, Betsy. Thank you for sharing it with us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this looks great.
We add to it each week.
What's that?
We add to it each week.
Oh, this is brilliant. Yeah, this is everybody can see this, right? Yes. Was that a yes? Everybody can see that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Great. Okay. So we will share that. Thank you, Doug. Once again, put the Chronometer link in there. Paula says, what was the name of the app that tells carbs, calories, fat? Yeah, that was the Chronometer. Dehydrated zucchini, Callie is recommending over potato chips. Excellent. Or kale chips, I love.
Well, but sweet potatoes dehydrated as chips is wonderful too. I was teaching 9th graders and they did a blind test with the chips from the cafeteria, potato chips from the cafeteria, potato chips from the corner store, and potato chips that they made out of sweet potatoes. And they all said they liked the sweet potato one best.
Yes, I do love sweet potatoes, but I'm kind of with Callie when it comes to doing the zucchini, because of course the sweet potatoes will raise our blood sugar much more than zucchini will. So
Try the zucchini.
yeah. Okay, so Betsy, I want to give you a few minutes to explain about the programs that you offer.
Okay, I have a 10-week program. To thrive.info is the website, and you have to spell EATTOTHRIVE.info. And it's based on the Hippocrates Health Institute, where my son sent me, and where I became a health educator. And each week we have, at the beginning, we have a mindfulness, short 3 minutes. Then we have the recipes for 25 minutes. And then we have excellent guest speakers, national guest speakers. And this is from on beginning February 3rd. The free introduction is January 20th, and it's Thursday nights, 6:30 to 8:30. And I just had an idea with Callie. Why not have a hour afterwards where people can chat and share who are diabetes 1, and they can talk about how their feelings are about it and maybe share each other's knowledge about it. And I'd be glad to host that. If people want to do it, I will advertise it as something. So I'm very curious to know. Oh, by the way, my classes are based on pay what you can. So it's ever since we started COVID, classes online. And but the money from the classes goes to my other program, which is called Real Kids, Real Food. I have one club that is for 3 to 6 year olds and another club that is 7 to 12 year olds. And I'm very excited that I've been asked by the Soccer League of the United States, and starting in Chester, Pennsylvania. It's a town where it's 70% Black and Hispanic, that they're going to get the soccer kids in there. And and since it's virtual, we have kids from Belgium, from Calgary, lots of places. And that my counselors are public health counselors in their senior year in college. And so there's no charge for the extra hour because all this money goes towards food we send out to kids who are food insecure. We have it delivered to their home so they can make recipes along with everybody else. So I was just curious if you put up your little flag, if you think that even if we have 2 people, we'll have it. Is anybody interested in coming to the class?
Betsy, I am.
Oh, good. We've got one. Great. Then we'll have it 8:30 to, I'll advertise it to the whole subscriber list that we have. Dr. Stanislaw, can I advertise you and put your bio in?
Sure. Why not?
Well, that'd be fabulous.
I'd love to come.
So to send me your bio and I'll advertise it. That's a great thing for people all over the United States who are diabetes 1.
Yeah.
Diabetes 2 could come too, right?
Oh, sure. They're not my specialty. I mean, I'm pretty well educated in understanding how to help them, but I don't prescribe the meds, and so many of them are on so many meds, and a lot of them also already have a lot of serious complications because they've had high blood sugar levels for so many years before they even get diagnosed, that oftentimes a type 2 gets diagnosed when they already have a heart attack, or they have a bleed in their eye, or they have a toe that is gangrenous, or, because they've already, type 2 comes on so slowly that they don't even know that their blood sugar levels has been rising for maybe 5 or 10 years, doing all that damage in the background. And then suddenly they end up in the doctor's office. So type 1, the onset is so normally is abrupt that it's not something that's been happening for years, causing inflammation. That's, it's a very different onset. But yes, type 2 is not my specialty because they're such a complex condition in terms of other complications and the medications that they're on. But if they're just wanting to learn how to lower their blood sugar, sure, they can. We can all help them with that for sure.
Would you like me to limit it to type 1 then?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I'm just not prepared to answer, a lot of questions that type 2s have when it comes to their medications and their other complications, or if they're on kidney dialysis, and if they're, opposed to heart attack or things like that. I don't like to, I have to be very careful with what kind of quote advice I give online, because I'm not allowed to be anybody's doctor, if you will. I'm simply a consultant, and I'm not practicing medicine in this virtual world. It's not legal for me to quote practice medicine. So if I am working with very sick people, it puts me in a little bit more of a risky situation.
Why don't I just advertise as type 1, but if somebody asks if they can come and join it, I'll say yes.
Oh yeah, that works. Yeah, that works. Sure. Great.
Good. Well, I'm very excited that you do that. That's absolutely wonderful. I'm very, very excited about that.
Yeah. Okay. So Betsy was so thorough, more than any interview I've ever had. She sent me a very thorough list of what she wanted to cover. And so I just want to touch on a few things that she spent the time writing out. We covered obviously what the benefits are, so many. We covered how does one get started. We talked about just taking one step at a time. Maybe it's just your breakfast or just more vegetables or just your dinner. Betsy made a list of what, good equipment is needed. Obviously a good sharp knife and a blender would be the most, first steps. A food processor, a dehydrator would be more advanced steps, in my opinion. Is plant-based diet more expensive than American processed food, animal and dairy? Is this a book that you said Eat Vegan on $4 a day?
Recommend the book. It's Eat Vegan on $4 a Day by Ellen Jaffe Jones.
Okay.
It's expensive eating vegan. Think of what you spend on a grocery list regularly.
Right. Food is important to it's feeding your life.
And for people that in the inner city that I work with, the underserved, they're my great interest. You can get 2 bags, a great big grocery bag of food of vegetables for $2, and you can go to the food pantries and get bags of boxes of vegetables free. So when we run our kids in the low-cost housing, they bring enough for parents to take home too.
And Betsy, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understand is that frozen vegetables actually are very high in nutrients because they get to fully ripen on the plant and then they're picked. So they don't have to be picked.
If they're good frozen, it's always better to have fresh. But you can have frozen, like for wheatgrass, there's a company in Canada called Dynamic Greens, and these little cubes that are all frozen and they're almost as good as fresh.
That's great. Yeah. Again, but just giving options to think outside the box, right? To help it be more realistic, help it be more affordable. The nutrient value from what I've read is, because the vegetable gets to be picked once it's fully ripened, when it's frozen. And
local. It's best to always buy local. So stuff isn't shipped green across the country.
That's for sure.
Get it organic, get it local. Very important.
That's a great point.
Buy from the local farmers.
Betsy talks about in the long run, doctors' bills and hospital stays due to many diseases are extremely expensive compared to good health. Lifestyle medicine is far superior to pharmaceuticals and surgery, right? Lifestyle medicine. I heard did I share this with you guys the other day? I always, Betsy, talk about what I call the 4 pillars of health. They are the essential pillars of our life that really provide us with a good foundation for well-being. And those 4 pillars are healthy diet, exercise, sleep, and emotional health. And this talk I listened to on New Year's Day, this was from Brendan Bouchard. I don't know if any of you know him, but he's somebody I follow online. And he goes, make sure you take your meds every day. Meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep. And I thought that was brilliant. The new meds, meditation, which is mindset, right? Emotional health, exercise, diet, and sleep. So those are the new meds of smart lifestyle focused people. So yes, those meds are far superior than pharmaceuticals and surgery.
I love that. That's wonderful.
Isn't that great?
That's wonderful. I love it. Who said that? Who said that?
Brendan Bouchard. He is an expert in personal development and in online marketing.
Great.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to put this on gallery. The other comments were, growing your own sprouts. I actually do that as well, Betsy.
It's so easy.
It's so easy.
You take a tablespoon of mung beans, a tablespoon of lentils, a tablespoon of zucchis, and you put them in a jar and let them soak overnight. And then you put cheesecloth over the top with a rubber band and empty them out in the morning and rinse them. And then and let them sit without the water during the day, and rinse them morning and rinse them night for 3 days. And you've got all these wonderful sprouts that you eat with your salad. You eat them as a snack. They're absolutely fabulous.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I do that. Somebody taught me too. And literally, that's as easy it is. Soak them overnight, rinse them in the morning, rinse them at night. And I have one of those stands. So to get all the water that kind of, so you can sit with the cheesecloth on top of the jar. And so it can drain any water because you don't want the sprouts to get moldy.
It's important to turn the jar upside down during the day.
During the day. Yeah. Yeah. But then also I love sprouts so much, but they're always sold in those plastic clamshells and you get like this much for like $6. And this way it's like you get endless sprouts for nothing, for pennies.
Right. You can put a third of a cup in of each one if you want, if you eat a lot. But if you're just single, you take a tablespoon of each.
Yeah. I love them. I eat a lot. Okay. She said, what are some plant-based treats for low blood sugars? Obviously dried fruits, carrots and beets. Personally though, as we guys know, we'll talk about this later. Glucose tabs are my favorite, even though they're not a whole food. Well, so glucose tabs, I think are, I mean, obviously they're not healthy for you, but they are in the sense that they're a lot easier to properly fix a low blood sugar than dried fruit. It's very hard to know how many carbs are in dried fruit, and it's very easy to want to eat the entire bag of apricots or pineapple or figs. Or I've tried to do fruit for lows, and I always 100% of the time end up overdoing it. So this is the 20%, in my opinion, that we should put glucose tabs in and not use real food for our lows. That's just my personal opinion. All right. And then how do you get your protein? We covered that. Protein is in everything. Protein's in a lot of plants, broccolis, tofu, nuts. You mentioned the Chronometer app, the Bobby approved app to see how much protein is any green vegetable, proteins in avocados, obviously beans. The one thing I really love about beans is they barely touch our blood sugar. They are such a good carb with so much protein and fiber that they are not a spiker. They are very, very easy. Lentils, very good to the blood sugar.
And there's so many different varieties of them.
How important is drinking water? Of course, very important. One needs to drink half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 130, you should drink 65 ounces a day. Now didn't you mean to say here, one should not drink a lot of water at meal times, right?
Right. Yeah, that would dilute what you're eating. And
dilute the enzymes. Yeah.
Yes.
And it also raises the pH.
Half an hour before, drink it up to a half an hour before or a half an hour afterwards.
Right. I try to tell everybody that, and they look at me like I'm crazy. They're always like, oh, they're trying to re-pour my water all day long during dinner. And I'm like, I don't like, right? Because your pH in your stomach has to be very low. Your stomach is just nothing but an acid bath. And the more water you drink, the higher the pH, the more basic the acid in your stomach becomes. And now you can't break down your food as easily, right? Think of this big fibrous protein, foods that we eat. We start with chewing them here, but then they have to become liquefied in the stomach. And that is what the acid's job is to do. So we don't want to dilute that acid. The iPhone apps that are helpful. We talked about Happy Cow, which finds vegan restaurants. Happy Scale smooths out your daily scale, helps you predict when you'll hit your goals. And then
these all go on your phone.
Yeah, these are great. Well, Betsy, I cannot thank you enough. This worked out so well.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah,
it's so exciting that you will be on our program.
Sure. I already want to. So I'm turning 50 this year. So I'm already like planning where I'm going to like go away for a month. And I'm like, oh, well, I think maybe I'll do that. I kind of wanted more pampering. I'll have to ask you later, how much I don't want to be like in a grass shack. I want to be like in a 5-star bed. But, if I could be a 5-star bed doing, plant-based for 3 weeks, I'm in,
Great, 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 great. Sounds great. Well, wonderful, wonderful to meet you all. And thank you for your questions. And I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Right. Okay. We will unmute all. I guess I don't know how to do that. Unmute all. Anyways, we can say goodbye. Okay. Thank you so much, Betsy. Bye. Betsy, if you want to stay on for a moment, I'll just stop the recording.
Okay.